Porn has taken over the dating for men.
We went and we decided that we were going to go and celebrate singles and play music for them and have a nice time for them at the paddle court. And the majority of people that showed up, 90% were women.
90% were
women. So if I used to run singles events and the biggest problem that I had with my singles events was getting men to the singles events.
Men, the reason why they're not going into these singles events and are not putting themselves out there is that men would rather get off from pornography,
I reckon,
than they would meet normal people. Porn has taken over the dating for men.
The profile, how we look at people, and what is desirable for us. Porn shifts that, changes that. We call it the arousal template. So what somebody may start off watching porn in their teens or early 20s completely changes when they're 30, 40 years old. And so what arouses them changes. So they may say, you know, I like petite Asian women in their 20s. In their 30s, they may say, I like robust white women with big busts. Because of that, the way that porn works with the brain, it needs more and more novelty in order for it to be more and more of a turn on. So it changes, and that very, very vanilla porn may be where somebody starts, and often they land up watching stuff that they'd actually feel ashamed of talking to other people about what they're watching. If we look at the development of men and women, right? Women are socially, or girls are socially, what's the word I'm looking for? We are...
would you say socially engineered?
Yes, we're developed as social beings. Women are more social than what boys are, right? If you look at the construct of how we're developed, if you look at the developmental stages and ages of children, you'll see that girls are more socially, they're better socially than what boys are. Oh, I'm struggling. I need dinner, guys. So I think there are a couple of things. I think that porn has definitely affected arousal templates. It's affected people's confidence in dating. I think that it's cheaper. It's cheaper to watch porn than to take somebody out on a date, or to even go on a date and have your hair done and everything. And I think that COVID had such a massive impact on us socially, men and women. And I think that single men that went into COVID single, I think have really struggled post-COVID, trying to be more social and putting themselves out there. I cannot tell you, Faith, if I could have a database of men, just men on my database, I would be able to pair them up with 3, 4, 5 women like this.
A lot of the guys are not asking the girls out. A lot of the guys are watching porn. And the women are the ones that are showing up saying, hey, pick me, I'm here. I want to go out on a date with you. I want to get to know you. I want to get married. But you're saying the men are the ones that are preferring to watch pornography than put themselves out there.
That's my understanding.
All right. The clip you just saw was from Metro FM in Johannesburg, South Africa. Not here, South Africa. And it's very similar to the video that I did earlier this week, which is about why men or black men do not show up to dating events, to curated dating events. And most people think it's a black problem, which it is a black problem for the most part, but it's also a male problem. And I guess you could say that it is a black problem because South Africa is a black country, but I think in Johannesburg, I think they're also talking about a mixed environment. And that is a white woman a white woman talking about it, and talking about a general male problem. How they can't get men to date women in person and put themselves out there, as they say. The language is almost very similar about putting themselves out there. Because when I hear women talk about putting themselves out there and stuff like that, I say, what does that mean? That means they want to be seen. Dating apps, dating sites, mixers, that kind of stuff. That's called putting themselves out there so they can be found. And they're using very similar language. And they're trying to figure out why men don't respond the same way that women do. That's what they're trying to figure out. Now, I haven't listened to the whole podcast. Now, this is a clip on TikTok. I actually went and found the whole podcast. And I may do a review on the whole podcast because I think the whole podcast is about 31 minutes. And I think I might do that one as a live and just go through the whole audio. It's not a video. But it shows that what we're talking about is in the black manosphere is universal. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Black men might be the canaries in the coal mine, but the thing is, it's a universal male problem. Which is why Kevin Samuels and the black manosphere's message went all over the planet, because it's a universal problem to the modern environment. And that's what this clip demonstrates. Now, if it wasn't for the language, and if it wasn't for the accents, the English accents that we have in this clip, you would have thought that it was in the United States. It was actually given by two black women. And when you look at it, it's not. At first I thought it was in the UK, but it's not. It's actually in South Africa, which kind of amazed me. And they're saying the exact same things that the women say here. Here they're blaming it on the internet, they're blaming it on games, they're blaming it on guys being incel and non-sexual, but they're maybe a decade or two behind where we are. And they're blaming it on porn, which is something that feminists in the 80s talked about, that porn was actually ruining relationships with actual women. And what's very interesting is that they said that men are getting their needs met through porn. That's through access to porn online, on the internet, yada, 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 right? Because they always complain that the government and society is trying to restrict female sexuality. And in a sense, that is true because women do get pregnant. But the thing is, they really try to restrict male sexuality. Because if men get their needs met, as these women are talking about, the men are not going to try to build society for women. They're not going to try to build families. Well, for what? They're getting their needs met. And the same thing is happening over there, because she talked about she does curated singles events and events for men and women, singles actually come together, right? And it doesn't work because it's like, as she says, 90% women, which is better than it is here, because over here, the single events are like 0% men. It's like 99.999% women. So and by a factor of 10, they're actually doing better than we are. But it's very interesting that when it comes down to it, and I heard another psychologist say the same thing, is that women, when it boils down to it, women depend on our testosterone and our need for sexual access, much like a drug, for us to show interest in them. Because at the bottom line, no matter what they say, no matter how they put it, no matter where they talk about their checks or their jobs or their education, what they really believe in their heart of hearts, it always comes back down to sex for men. Nothing else that we say, nothing else we say that we want, nothing else we say that we desire, blah, 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 doesn't mean anything. When it comes down to them, they only think one thing, that if they supply sex and sexual access, that's all they need to do. That's the problem that goes on right now. But it's the actual freaking problem that goes on right now. Their belief that it comes down to sex. If they supply us with sexual access, then we'll show up. So they hold these events, they hold these mixers, they hold these meetups, they hold these clubs, and throw on a bunch of women, say here they are, they're ready to mingle. All you got to do is go get it. You got access to them. And they can't understand why we're turning down what they think we most desire from them. They're turning it down. They think, wait a minute, we're dressed up, we got our hair done, we're looking attractive, and we're letting men know that we're here to mate, basically, in a sense. We're here for the mating ritual. How come you're not showing up? Because primarily in their minds, that's what they think that is most important to us. And from time to time, it is. Men need sexual release. But it's sex and vagina and sexual access to a woman is not a drug. You're not a drug dealer. Women's worldview is so warped they cannot see past their own block. At the end of the day, they think sex is the most important thing they can actually give to a man. At the end of the day, that's their thinking. That's how come Generation X and millennials skip the whole line and said, forget doing all the other stuff that men say that's important to them. What they really want is sex. And if we offer them sex, they'll do anything for it, and they'll come to our rescue. They'll marry us. Whatever we want is because what's between our legs. And that is increasingly being shown not to be true. In fact, it's shown to be the opposite. And so in this particular video, they're blaming it on porn. They say men are getting their sexual needs met someplace else other than live women. And they're pissed. Okay, why are they doing porn when they can have an actual live woman in front of them, give them what they think they desire? And, why take a facsimile instead of the real thing? And even she said, even though it's not true that porn is taking the place of women, it's not true. Even she said that men are finding it easier, cheaper, less hassle to actually get their needs met elsewhere than to deal with a woman, to deal with the woman in person, especially with a modern woman. Easy to get your needs met without all the headache. And if you think about sex is about the average sexual encounter for most couples is less than 15 minutes. Depending on who you're measuring, it's about 5. If you're good, it's 30 and above. But you're trading 23 hours of contact for 15 to 30 minutes of pleasure. And if you're socialized to think that way, it's worth it. What happens when that socialization is not there anymore? And that's what she's talking about. Actually, she's correct. She blames COVID. But she blames COVID for the wrong reasons. She's saying when COVID happened, it broke men and women socially, changed the way they socialize, which is true. And she's thinking that men have lost the ability to socialize because of the year COVID, which is not true. If men wanted to go out there and socialize and chase women again, they would. What COVID did was break the socialization and taught men that their addiction to sex was not real. It's not innate, it's not as physical, it's not as biological as it's portrayed to be in porn, as it's taught to us in movies, as it's taught to us in school, as it's taught to us by our parents, as it's taught to us by our peers. Men are taught that pursuing and getting the woman of his choice was of the utmost importance, and no amount of money, no amount of effort is too small. It's all worth it. What happens when you're cut off from that? Say you're cut off from a drug that you've been on, that you've been forced on for most of your life. What happens? In the beginning, you go through withdrawals. And then after that, you go through acceptance. After that, the need dies and you become unfamiliar. Now, on a small scale, you get the public pressure to get back on that horse, get back on the drug, because you're surrounded with drug users. What happens? Everybody goes cold turkey at one time. Everybody goes into monk mode at one time. And then men realize after they get off the drug, after they get off the shakes, just like a drug user, their health goes up, their well-being goes up, their self-importance goes up, their finances go up, because they're not spending the average. Here in the United States, the average cost to maintain a woman is, and we proved that, is about maybe $1,000 a month. What happens when you're not spending that? The average time pursuing a woman that you have to spend on a woman. If you're not in a committed relationship, it's about an hour or two a day. If you're in a committed relationship, we're talking about 4 or 5 hours a day. What happens when that time is returned to you? Doing, whether it's a hobby, whether it's exercise, whether it's going out making more money. What happens? Then the need for that drug, the need for that validation, the need for that woman dampens. In fact, sometimes it even disappears, which is what's happening right now. It disappears. And then the women don't make it better by thinking that the old rules apply. I don't have to pursue you. You're not special. You're not the prize. You're not something that I need to go get. I can get what you're giving me without it. Especially now. A lot of things that men needed from women, I would say even 30 years ago, not necessary now. You set up a house where you don't need to clean too much. You can easily cook for yourself, because one, women don't cook, and two, with the recipes on YouTube, with the modern appliances, stuff like that, a man can make a meal from start to finish in 20 minutes. He doesn't need her. Other than children, which if you're gonna have kids, then you need a 2-parent household. That has not gone anywhere, which is why marriage was formed in the first place. But the thing is, what women bring to you and supply to you and give to you, you don't need anymore, right? Women are not nice. They're not nice to you anymore. They don't talk to you nicely anymore. They don't validate you. But in fact, they use you as their unpaid therapist. You give them way more emotional labor. You're paying for their time. Sometimes that you have to cook for them. You got to plan dates. You got to take them out. You got to make them happy. All this kind of stuff. And the thing is, when you add all that stuff up, including the amount of money that you had to pay out, it's not worth it. And they think it's because what their access, what they have between their legs, that exists, that's supposed to be a goal, is the reason that you're doing all that. And what happens when you don't need that anymore? When that is not the center of your universe. And that's what you're hearing here. I've heard this before for different reasons. Something about being outside of the West and being in the so-called developing world, which is South Africa is, they're pretty blunt. They're pretty blunt. And what she's saying is that our trump card, our ace in the hole, the very thing that drew men to us is valued less than it used to be. And so we don't have anything to trade with anymore. So the thing we thought we could trade everything for, our pot of gold, is not a pot of gold anymore. And men are making different choices. And COVID was a singular event. I told that to Kevin when he was alive. I told that to other people about going into monk mode and what they're going to find out on the other side, because I'm a MGTOW monk. And I went through the transition. And I went cold turkey. And once you go cold turkey and you realize that the woman in front of you costs way more than what she's worth, that's when the equation doesn't balance anymore. And that's when, as Barbarossa said, the juice is not worth the squeeze. And it isn't. Anyhow, that's all I got for this one. We just out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.